Okay.
Okay, so we are recording this the best way we know how because the collaboration room has not worked. And I have Nashunda on the phone with me, speakerphone. Go ahead, Nashunda.
Hi, this is Nashunda.
Okay, and so we're going to go ahead and start our peer review. Okay, so first of all, I did want to say thank you for sharing your interpretation with me. I really enjoyed watching it and seeing different ways to sign other options on how to sign things. And I could tell, especially through your comments through me, that you have working experience. And so I really appreciate you taking the, letting me view that with you. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions about the interpretation before we continue?
Oh, no problem. Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. So, first of all, I mean, when you were recording this, was there anything in particular that was a surprise for you or didn't go as you expected it would?
As far as the actual recording, no. Everything was as expected.
Okay. And if you could interpret this, was there anything in particular that you thought, if I could do that over again, I would do this differently?
Yes, most definitely. And for the most part, eliminating so much of the English from my mouth. Even if I was using ASL sign, I would put an English word with it. So, for example, in my analysis, I would be signing blame, which should be blame convict, but I would have blame on my mouth instead of convict. And so I caught that several times throughout my interpretation, and it really annoyed me. But at the same time, I was glad to do it because it showed me some of my weaknesses and some things that I've probably been doing throughout muscle memory, because a lot of times interpreters don't work in teams, we work alone, so a lot of times we don't see our skills.
Right, okay. And did you think, since you mentioned the English mouthing, do you have any idea of like what you would do in the future to try to change that habit? Because it sounds like it's just like a habit for you.
Yes, I actually will have this as one of my deliberate practices, something that I'll be setting up as a goal to work towards to make sure that I'm paying attention to that. I'm going to also, once I have some more time, find some workshops that'll discuss morphemes and mouthing and the correct non-manuals to go with different times. I definitely need to review on that as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I know when we talked before, you had several sections that you wanted me to look at. In addition, we were supposed to look at the numbers. And I do want to say that I noticed your numbers seemed, spot on for the most part. I mean, it doesn't look like that's something that you had a difficulty with. The only thing I did notice was I put it down in the analysis tool that I sent you. But the fraction, instead of having the 3 up top and then the drop down 4 to show it was a fraction, it was kind of side by side, and so it would kind of look like 34. But other than that, I thought that all of your numbers were great. And so, would you say that's not an issue for you doing the numbers?
No, I don't tend to have an issue with numbers because just kind of comfortable with that, and then also when I'm working with different clients, I'll notice how they actually sign, because there are certain sets of groups of numbers that can be signed in 3 different ways. So I just kind of look at what my clients may be doing during pre-session, when I first meet them, whether that's in the lobby of the doctor's office or just meeting them. I might ask a question that'll include a number, or I'll just kind of see what mode of communication they're using, and sometimes that determines how I decide to do my numbering system.
Right, okay, yeah, you are influenced by the deaf clients that you are, I'm sure. But yeah, I thought the numbers, everything that I looked at with your numbers, they seemed, right on, so I don't think you had an issue there. I did notice that the sections that you asked for me to pay attention to were basically the same things you know, that you already identified as problems that, you know, are weak areas that need to be, you know, practiced. But the English mouthing was, you know, definitely apparent throughout the interpretation, and it does look like it's, you know, it kind of looks like it's a habit. We all get into these habits, and it's going to take, like you said, deliberate practice to get it, to tweak that and change that. You also asked for me to check on things, English word order or English structure, and I thought it was interesting that there were large chunks that were ASL, but then every now and then you would slip into this English structure, like for instance at the time marker 3.38, when you said 4 days later, and then you said picture, and then you even finger spelled of, that was, you know, kind of almost verbatim, you know, English word order. Why do you think that you slip into that English structure every now and then?
I think it's the lag time, processing time, or decollage, whatever they're calling it these days. I think it's sometimes not having enough of that processing time, and that's also a habit, because I know during practicum, when I had a couple of my videos, you know, reviewed, that was one thing that I was told that I need to stay in one mode. And so I've been aware of that and alerted of that, you know, previously, and then when I team, sometimes I just kind of flip back and forth, and I think most of the time it's due to processing time. And then on other occasions, it's because I may really not understand, and so I'm processing externally, and I know I need to be signing, so I just put something out at that time, because of course I do more simultaneous interpreting than I do consecutive interpreting. So this is very enlightening for me, that I actually get to practice doing that a little bit more. I get the opportunity to listen to chunks, stop, process it, and then produce it. So,
okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. So, I mean, it sounds kind of like the consecutive is just not something that you've got a lot of experience with, and so you kind of revert back into whatever, like you said, there's time that you're thinking, oh, I need to be signing, so you just, that's when you slip into that English structure. So probably these type of exercises with the consecutive interpreting, I mean, do you think that'll probably help you practice more to not slip into that habit?
Yes, definitely. At first, I was really resistant, so I'm like, why are we doing this? But now I'm really glad that we are doing it. So. Right.
Okay, well, I mean, that's basically all I would say. I mean, I think that just through the questions and getting your feedback on the things that you identified, and then I was able to see those things that you were talking about in your interpretation, and you kind of you're already aware of those. So I did put a little more detail in the analysis that I sent to you, but I mean, I think we pretty, you know, that's pretty much covers, you know, what I noticed in your interpretation and things that you already sort of know within yourself also. So unless you have any other questions for me, you know, that's basically everything that you found to be true in your interpretation were things that I noticed as well.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
Did you find, though, that the actual intent and the meaning was portrayed in my interpretation?
Yeah, I feel like it. I feel like that even though, you know, even with some of the slips into English, that the overall message and the overall point was definitely conveyed, and I felt like that all of those other sections that we filled out, I mean, I didn't really see anything. I know one thing that you asked about in particular was the semantics. Like, for example, the one that in the book, let me go back here and see what it was. It was 18. Give me a second. Like, for one of the examples was semantics. You had asked for me to look for 18A. Semantics are inaccurate using use instead of used to. But I really didn't see any issues in those type of areas. The biggest issues that everything else looked, you know, it looked like it was on point, and the only issues that I noticed were the ones that you'd already kind of mentioned with the English mouthing and the English word order occasionally. But yeah, I thought it was good.
Okay. Good. Okay. Well, going to your interpretation, and I'm sorry that I just kind of got into that work mode, and I think I did mine, yours, and
That's okay. I enjoyed reading all the comments you had, and that's what I meant by I could tell you are a working interpreter, because you did think of some things that I didn't even think of, like the omission for the laughter, and then the deaf audience being kind of like, well, what are they laughing at? I didn't convey that as a joke or humorous in any way, and so I could tell. I was like, that's working interpreter speaking right there.
Because it will happen. It'll happen where you're thinking, okay, I just want to get to the next part, or I want to take a breather,
right.
I want to put my hands down for a minute. But the deaf are like, I heard everybody laughing. What's going on? What's going on? You got to recap, and now you're further along, or either the team has to try to catch them up, or either the other deaf person that did catch it in the room is now explaining to them, and it just kind of can get awkward there a little bit.
Yeah. I realized that after I read your comment, that it just didn't occur to me at the time. I was like, oh my goodness, that totally just went over my head there. But yeah, I see your point though, for sure.
Right. Okay. With your interpreting, you asked for spatial relations, assuming the role of person, indicating the name of person or idea, locations of people and things changing, and assigning two different reference to the same location.
Mm-hmm.
In your interpretation, I think you were very aware of those items. I looked at it a couple of times or whatever, just to make sure that, because sometimes, you heard the speech, the source language, that you kind of overlook some things at times. I looked at it several times to make sure that those things were in place, and I think you executed those really well.
Well, thank you.
The only thing that I can say that really caught me at first was you set up this beautiful town. I mean, I could literally see the town. I saw the houses, the streets, and everything. I saw the neighborhood. But then when you had to go back to refer to it, which is where he talked about the convicted murderer only lived 3 blocks away, I didn't see that. I understood what you said. You said, the person, you referred back to the house, but after you had set up that beautiful town, you didn't go back and use that town to show where the murderer lived,
okay.
3 blocks away. And you had a beautiful setup to execute that. So that was one of the main things with the spatial, and I guess the locating that you want to work on. And then also, where are you from?
Well, I'm from a little town in Alabama, Smith Station.
Oh, okay, so you're in Alabama, okay,
yes.
I'm in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, Alabama and Georgia both have their own regional signs, dialects. So there was a couple of times that certain signs that you used that I was like, huh? But I actually on the internet and looked up the signs through Sign Savvy, HSL browser, and HandSpeak to see what those variants were. And I was like, oh, okay, I see now. And so, for example, I think in around about 6:15,
mm-hmm.
When they talked about the paper, your sign, what I did was I actually looked at your interpreting and I voiced it myself. I turned him off and I turned everything off and I voiced what I saw. And so when I got to that area, my mind just wanted to keep going to school,
right.
But actually signing paper, and paper has more of a sweeping motion backwards, whereas yours was kind of like the pad. So
okay.
I blurted out school, and I was like, that's not right. And I went back to do that, and then evident, I think it was another one, and then Identify was another one that kind of threw me, just trying to think about the signs that kind of threw me off a little bit, that, caused me to have to think a little bit more. And
Right.
that's only just fine production and just, Alabama's truck and Georgia's truck are two different. Pregnant is different in
Yeah.
Alabama versus Georgia, and just the production of the sign.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was about it. And your finger spelling, you can slow down a little bit on the finger spelling, because if somebody was voicing for you, especially if you were doing platform interpreting, you sign fast sometimes, and sometimes you finger spell a little slower, and then when you get to the end, you just kind of wrap it up.
Okay.
And so,
Okay, yeah, finger spelling is, if you read, I don't know if you read Miss Robertson's, her little take on where we had been discussing last week on finger spelling, but the whole knot in your stomach thing, that's definitely me. It doesn't matter if I'm, doing expressive or receptive, it's the same, and I probably do get into too big a hurry. So I definitely can see where I need to slow down and improve in that area and make it a little more clear. Yeah, I noticed, go ahead.
That comes with time. All of us have that issue. Just this year, that was one of my deliberate practices. Well, 2015, that was one of my deliberate practices of just making sure that my finger spelling became more clear and accurate, because I was told one time, you finger spell like a deaf person. You just run everything together. You missing letters and stuff like that. So that was one of my things for 2015,
Right.
was to slow down my finger spelling, and whether that be to actually hold my wrist or to kind of look at my hand while I'm getting stuff. Those were some of the factors that I had to employ in order to get a better representation of my letters throughout. So
Okay.
it comes with time.
Okay, yeah. And also I did want to mention, I did notice that your identification was different than mine, and that threw me off too, because I do know there's people sign differently, and like you said, I think that the sign that we have in Alabama for pregnant is basically only in Alabama. I have never, if you run into anybody else, they don't know what you're talking about if you do that sign. But I was like, maybe I'm wrong about that identification, so I'm going to check with my local deaf community on that also, just to see. I just feel like I've seen it somewhere before, but that doesn't mean that I didn't see it from an interpreter who maybe was mis-signing it or misusing it. So I'm definitely going to check on that. I did notice that. So yeah, thank you for reminding me.
That sign here in Georgia is more so if someone probably were to just catch it, and especially someone that signs a lot for English users, that is impaired.
Oh, okay. Impaired. Okay.
Like hearing impaired or
Right.
something like that. Somebody might probably let that, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
And also Innocence Project.
Yes.
You actually signed it instead of actually finger spelling it there, whereas that was the proper
Right.
proper noun. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I read your comment on that, I was like, yeah, definitely that was a mistake. I should have finger spelled that out. So just mistakes that I don't, pay attention to, and when somebody else views your work, it does help to say, okay, you forgot to do this, you forgot to do that. So yeah, I when I read that, I was like, should have finger spelled it.
That was good. And then this segregation, just becoming the actual character, sometimes leaving the narrator role and going into the character more often, probably kind of help with that. You can see it, don't sign it type thing.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, did you have any issues or concerns when you were doing the note taking at least? And also when he talked about the brain abhorring a vacuum.
Yes.
I mean, how did you feel about that part of ending right there for one thing, and not having something to expand on, and then just also, how did you feel when you taking notes and getting your thoughts together for this interpretation? And how did you feel? Remember, I asked you earlier in the week. I said, how did you feel about our brainstorming after, having seen the source text?
Yeah, the brainstorming, I thought, now last week with brainstorming, my partner and I talked about brainstorming, just the two of us. I don't think this is not during our recorded time, but I felt like we kind of missed the mark on a lot of the opportunities to add a lot of different words in that brainstorming opportunity. But I felt like our brainstorming was kind of incorporated a lot of different possibilities, things that I had not really thought about before. I know you brought up a lot of the words that I actually had not thought about, like you brought up schooling and stuff like that. And not that all those things were in there, but I really felt good at how well-rounded we had really kind of reached to a lot of different areas. So I felt really good about our brainstorming and that area. The other thing that you asked me about how I felt about how the interpretation ended, let me go back and tell you about the notes first, because I know you also asked me about notes prior to sometime during this week you texted me about the notes. The notes, I'm a note taker, but nobody can read my notes but me because they're so sloppy and messy, and I don't clean them up at all. When she asks us to turn them in, I just turned it in just like it was, but I heavily rely on my notes for interpreting. So that is something that it's a must for me when we do chunks like that. I have to have those notes. As far as how it ended, I really liked it because it ended on one phrase, which was the brain abhors a vacuum. And I took that opportunity to go ahead and make an expansion and describe what that was. And so that to me was the funnest part. I don't know, like, if it came across, correctly to other viewers, but I just took that and ran with it. I was like, you know what, it ended on this phrase, which just kind of leaves you hanging. I know what it means. I know what he's saying. So I just went ahead and made an expansion there and said, kind of like if you have this specific memory here, but there's a problem that's missing information. And so what does the brain do? It just creates information and adds it to it. Okay, now it's complete, So to me, that was the most fun part about the whole interpretation, because I didn't feel as restricted because it did end on that one simple note.
Okay. And for me, it was the opposite. For me, it was as if I wanted more. Because when I heard that phrase, of course I had to process it. I had to take it and find the implicit meaning behind that. So for me, it was like, okay, I got to do a little bit more process, and how can I just really explain that to someone that doesn't hear? And so for me, my take on that was that the brain, it actually hates to just continually hold on to memories, especially if they may or may not be true, or depending on what that memory actually relates to. Because if it's a negative meaning, sometimes we just push those things out of our heads. And if it's a positive memory, we hold on to it, we reflect back to it, we go back to it often. And so when he said that, my mind just immediately went to the brain wants to decipher which memory it should hold on to, which are good, which are bad, how much of that to retain. So
right.
So it was a little different.
Well, I mean, I could see that point of view also. Yeah, I understand that. But yeah, I mean, I think that, I feel like that both of us kind of did something different, but like they always say, there's a million ways to do one thing. So, and I did learn from your interpretation. Like I said, I always learn from other people, all of my classmates, and I always enjoy watching everybody else's work. So I can steal what works with other people's interpretations and add it to my own.
Yes, definitely. And I definitely enjoy, too, how you explain a mom actually protecting their child, you know, when they talk about the alibi area. I knew where I was going from where I was, you know, he was respected, you know, what she wanted to say about the situation, and then, you know, a mom, you know, she will do whatever she can to protect, you know, as a kid or whatever, but I like how you actually brought forth that message as well in that area. And then, like I said, my favorite part was that city.
Oh, well, thank you. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording right now. Is that okay?
That's perfectly all right.
All right. Hang on a second.